My name is Wendell Fraker. I'm the director for the section for medical marijuana regulation for the Missouri Department of Health. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight and introduce to you a program that's new to Missouri that the citizens passed back on November the 6th. The voters passed by 65%. And we want to make sure that we get this program up and running and we do it right. First, I'd like to introduce a couple of folks. I'd like to introduce Amy and Lisa with us today. They're a part of our team, and they'll be helping us with the program as we move forward. Also, Andrea is, I think she's downstairs watching the door because the door was locked or something, so she's doing door duty, but she'll be back up here in a minute. And then I'm going to introduce Dr. Williams here in just a moment, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understood the goals of tonight's forum and kind of the rules. What we're doing tonight is we're trying to gather input from the public regarding the rulemaking process. We want to remind everyone that if they want to speak or leave comments, be sure and sign up at the back. Cheryl is back there, and there's Cheryl, right in the center of the back of the room. Speakers will speak in the order that they're called by myself. When your name is called, step up to the podium and microphone here and begin stating your name and the town in which you reside and or do business. Comments should be kept to no more than 5 minutes per speaker. The purpose of this forum is to collect public input, again, for the rulemaking process. It's not a question and answer period. The scope of your input should be limited to the development of rules and regulations for the program. And remarks should be in good taste and presented in the spirit of information sharing. I'd like to remind you, we've got the room for 90 minutes, so if everybody spoke and we had a question and answer for them, as you could tell, there's no way we could ever be able to do that in a 90-minute period. So this is why we want to make sure that we limit our comments to the rulemaking process, suggestions, ideas, thoughts, and then I will tell you though, we will gladly accept emails with any information that you have, and we'll get you that information. As you can see here, here's our medical marijuana at health.mo.gov information website, and be sure and send that information to us, and I assure you we will do our very best to answer any specific questions that you might have. I'd also like to remind you that we are working on the rules, and we hope to have the first part of those rules out shortly. I can't tell you when, but we're working hard to try to get them done. We have to have them, of course, in place by June the 4th, and that's per the Constitution. So another thing I'd like to mention is the dates. That's a constitutional date. The next constitutional date is the date that we begin accepting begin issuing the medical patient license cards, patient's cards, and that's July the 4th. And then the third date that's in the Constitution is the August 3rd date, and that's the date that we begin accepting the formal applications for the licensed facilities. Cultivation, manufacturing, and the dispensary facilities. So those are the dates that we have to meet by constitutional mandate. With that, I'm going to introduce Dr. Randall Williams. He's the director of the Missouri Department of Health.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming out tonight. I was a physician for 30 years and had 3,000 patients, and one thing I learned very quickly was that the best way to get to a good outcome is to listen to your patient, in this case to listen to you. I like to quote Lyndall all the time: we think we will get the best program here in Missouri if we listen to people. It's been done in 31 other states, and sometimes that hasn't rolled out real well. And we think that if we listen carefully, that we'll come up with a program that serves the needs of the people of Missouri. Again, this is medical marijuana. It is in our department because as a physician, I realize that for many of you, just how important this is. I want to thank Lyndall and his team. They have worked tirelessly. They are a phenomenal group with a lot of subject matter expertise, and they're also just tireless workers. So I greatly appreciate how much energy they put into this in a very short time. It is our goal to meet our deliverables, which are prescribed by Article 16 of the Constitution, and your being here tonight will very much help us do that. So again, I know some of you have driven a long way, and we very much appreciate your coming. But just understand, if you don't get a chance to speak tonight, we welcome your comments by email. You can write them down, you can post them on our website, So we'll give you all that information, but we clearly appreciate your coming here and sharing with us your thoughts on how we can best serve the patients of Missouri. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Okay, with that, we're going to begin so we can utilize our time. Our first speaker is Andrew Hicks. Andrew Hicks. Oh, you are. Come on up, Andrew, to the podium right here, if you would.
I'm Andrew Hicks, St. Joseph, Missouri, Kansas City area. I want to come talk about the caregiving license especially. That's what I'm concerned about at this point. With the 3 licenses, 18 plants per patient, 54 plants total. If we up that to 2 more licenses, to 5 licenses per caregiver, the excess being allowed to be able to sell to the dispensaries, the caregivers having the excess that way, that eliminates it ever hitting the black market. I mean, because that's going to be a big issue. But nobody wants a repeat of Oregon at all. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous. There's a lot of people behind me. Okay, so like I said, the caregiver license with only having 3, that gives us 54 plants. If we move that up to 5, that would give us 90 plants. Now, I know the way it's looking, we're not going to get to put seed to soil probably till January next year with all the rules. As far as I've read, we can start caregiving in August possibly. If that happens, and you allow the caregivers to sell the excess, let them cover their patients, the 2 ounce a month, whatever it comes down to, the excess being sold to the dispensaries, that would allow the dispensaries day 1 to start selling and profiting and dispensing the medical cannabis to the patient to hopefully, especially in our area, the opiate epidemic's getting out of control. But nobody wants a repeat of Oregon. Nobody wants that to happen. Nobody wants the market to drop and crash, but it's going to be battling the black market still at first. With an average of $15 a gram coming out, if we allow the caregivers to sell the excess to the dispensaries, like I said, it keeps it from ever hitting the black market. It allows that caregiver to profit, and it also allows the patients to be covered and the dispensaries on day 1 to go into effect. Because the way it's looking, not being able to put seed to soil till January 1st of 2020, we still have to grow, clone, vegetate, all that stuff. We're not going to get the harvest till April. So what are we going to do for those first 4 months of that year? It depends on the black market still, but we want to combat the black market as well at the same time. So I just wanted to put that out there for you guys to take into consideration. Like I said, nobody wants to repeat at Oregon. California's cool. Arizona's a little bit better. I mean, I'm sure everyone in this room has been to most of the states, Colorado, everything. But here in Missouri, I feel like we have a high chance to change what's going on out there. We have more farmland, and especially in St. Joseph, Cameron, Kansas City, that's all part of the hemp trail from the Civil War. So as soon as we crossbreed that hemp from outside with the hemp we have now especially in our area, we have a plant that's naturally going to grow outside without the pesticides and organic free. So
Okay.
I don't need a full 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for coming tonight. Our next speaker is Pete Hummert. And while we're waiting on Pete, I saw a poster back there with my name on it. Could you raise that up again? I didn't see what it said. 1 to 9.
Breaker, 19, you got your.
Oh, Breaker, okay. Okay, all right, we're all in for a good laugh. I was hoping it wasn't something bad. Thank you. All right, Mr. Hummert, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Pete Hummert, Hummert International, located in St. Louis, Missouri. My question is primarily to the cultivation facility. What will they do, or the regulation for plant waste? You know, stems, roots, containers, things like that.
Very good, thank you. That certainly will be addressed. Thank you. Tyler Williams.
Why don't you call a couple of names?
Okay, good idea. Kevin Ellison, you're on deck.
All right. My name is Tyler Williams. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. My company is ASI Food Safety. We do third-party food safety audits. And in the past year, we've done a lot of cannabis audits. This is regarding GMP, good manufacturing practices, and GFSI standards. Currently, the state of Florida has a law in place that kind of doesn't really make sense. It specifies that the facilities need to be GMP or GFSI equivalent within 1 year. We found out through auditing facilities in the state of Florida that that's not really possible. The standards are a little too high for them, especially starting off and being as small as they are. So I guess my recommendation is to list off key items in the rules that specify specifically safety concerns, things like HACCP, document control, recalls and withdrawals, risk mitigation, validation and verification, crisis management, all these things that you would see in good manufacturing practices and GFSI standards that we see in the food industry and similarly in the pharmaceutical industry. And I guess I would also just like to point out that we have developed, I guess I have developed an audit form that we're using currently starting March 1st for cannabis facilities throughout the United States, and would like to offer my help in developing these rules as a subject matter expert. So I guess that is it. Thanks, guys.
Very good, thank you. Kevin, and our next speaker after Kevin will be Dr. Doug Pernikoff.
Hi, my name is Kevin Ellison. I'm with CST Solutions. We do security. Two quick suggestions. One is, based off of other states, that the licenses be rewarded in a staggered manner. So it's cultivation, then processing, then dispensaries, so that the previous ones have time to get up and running before the next licensee start. And then also, I know obviously there'll be security specified for anti-diversion, and I'd like to request that also include security around protecting employees as well.
Thank you, Kevin. After Dr. Doug would be Joy Sweeney.
Thank you. Doug Pernikoff, St. Louis, Missouri. What else information did you want?
That's good enough.
Okay, good. So if I remember that there's only going to be 2 testing lab licenses, and I would suggest that you consider having 4 or 5 regional, and I just think that's going to make the whole process a lot more efficient. You're not going to overload, and I bet it wouldn't be that difficult to create those opportunities there. That's my suggestion.
Thank you very much. After Joy will be Tim McCorkle.
Is there any way to turn up that mic?
Let's see.
What's going on?
This
Okay.
one first? That one?
Can't hear back here, nothing at all.
Okay.
I talk pretty loud. Can you hear me? I'm not as silent as some of these other people. I have many things, and if I don't get to it in the time frame, I can just leave you the papers. I also have some research and some other recommendations. I'm with the Council for Drug-Free Youth, so my main goal and our goal is educating and protecting young people. And I think that everybody here in the room would advocate that we don't want to harm our youth. One of the things that we definitely think is important is a budget for science-based public awareness campaigns across multiple media that discourage youth use and describe dependence and withdrawal symptoms and provide a phone number to connect treatment, like Gamblers Anonymous or something like that. And then also some baseline data to be gathered and analyzed, kind of like Rocky Mountain HIDA. Compliance checks to prevent sales to minors and those without medical marijuana cards. Also, roadside testing to protect all citizens from impaired drivers. Medicine is, if it's needed for people, they just shouldn't be behind the wheel. They need to take an Uber or a Lyft or something or get other transportation, not be behind a wheel, just with any other medicines that impair your driving ability. More drug recognition experts, at least equal to the number of retail, manufacturer, and cultivation outlets in Missouri. And then a state-monitored toll-free number for the public to report adverse effects of marijuana use, because we don't know what some of the unintended consequences might be, and withdrawal, and obtain any information on treatment resources in their local community if they have the need. And then drug courts to steer users into treatment rather than incarceration. I think we've already tried to do that throughout most of the state, but I think that we're going to need more people and more help with that. And then Medicaid expansion that allows for greater access to health care to reduce self-medication. I think that's one of the problems that we're going to have with this, is a lot of self-medication. I don't know what the rules are. We don't know what the rules are yet, but those are some of the concerns that we've had. Increase in access to FDA-approved marijuana medications so that doctors can actually prescribe them. They can be recommended, they can be delivered through pharmacies that can identify contraindications. I think that's really important. We also would like to include some recommendations for medical marijuana and sales at dispensaries on a statewide PDMP to discourage doc in a box. So even though we don't have a statewide PDMP, hopefully we'll get one. And if nothing else, we could at least have a monitoring system for the marijuana. And then forbid sales to people with contraindications like pregnancy. I think that's one of the things that we really need to look out for, is our unborn children. And like drivers without a license, anybody who doesn't carry a medical marijuana card while they're in possession would have the similar fines. And then there's some physician recommendations, and I'll just leave these with you if my time is up. I don't know, I wasn't timing myself, but I was just reading off a one-page list. I thought I could get through it in 5 minutes. I talked pretty fast. But obviously, I know that there's a lot of people in this room that have different opinions, and the law is the law. It is in place, and I just like to make sure that the rules protect our children and all of the citizens. And I want to protect their rights to, people's rights to have access to medicine that's needed, but I also want to protect our rights to be protected from the contraindications. And so here, I'll leave all this fun stuff. I'm not going to read it all, I promise. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak today.
Tim? And then Adela Falk will be next. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Hi, I'm Tim McCorkle. I'm with Titan Healthcare in Fenton, Missouri. What a great and amazing time this is for our state. All the people who are deserving of that, very good. To echo similar comments that have already been made, I think the inclusion of GMP practices should be mandatory from start to finish, from cultivation all the way through to dispensaries. I think it would be a very wise idea to put a requirement for the staffing of a medical director in a dispensary with a minimum of an RN's license to assist in making more clinical related choices and decisions, as opposed to just having street vendor type products going out the door, and mimicking more of a recreational type of position. Also, I think it's just take a moment for everyone that's with us and behind us to take a moment to grasp the responsibility that we all have in doing this. And there's a lot of issues with the black market and how that's all going to play out. And I think there's been suggestions that maybe stair-stepping the program a little bit so we can get cultivation going, or at least the independent patient's rights to be able to begin growing. I think that would help the folks in Missouri and kind of clear up some of the air as well. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Daryl Bertrand will be after Adela. Adela Falk is up right now.
All right, hello, my name is Adela Falk. I am from Williamsburg, Missouri, District 43. I'm a patient or a criminal. I guess it really depends on, it's up to you. First and foremost, I want to start with our Second Amendment. Just because I could be a patient doesn't mean I should lose my constitutional right that I was born with. Please save your applause or put my time back on. Second off, I want to address the fact, first off, I appreciate us being here, but what took us so long? You know, we could have had decent rules and regulations. My fear is that you're going to make this a crime against the poor. 70% of Missourians don't have insurance. Do I need to go to my primary care physician to get a recommendation or a certification. I don't have a doctor. If I need more than 6 plants, I need 2 doctors. There's a clinic that's a pot shop, I would say, because it's a doctor clinic for recommendations. It's going to cost me $300. Do I need to do that twice? Then get a patient certificate and a grow certificate? And let's just go even further. What do you call a facility? According to Google, a facility is a place. A place is my backyard. If I put a lock on my backyard, can I grow outdoors? I can justify in a court of law that 6 plants is not near enough. If I do salves, tinctures, lotions, flowers, edibles, soaps, oils, I have outdone the amount of plants you're going to give me. If you add how much square footage I could put, let's put in my lack of mobility. Add a wheelchair to that. You have to understand that the people that you're putting in jeopardy are the people that are not here. The people that have no ability because of their sickness. This is medical marijuana, not recreational marijuana. First and foremost, the patients need to be who we're representing today. Regulate the grows, regulate the dispensaries, but leave what we do in our backyard alone. How do I add a qualified condition on there? Because I wasn't in with NAM, so my condition, which is chronic, which I take medication every day for, is not on here. How do I put that on here? Who do I plead to? If I'm denied a recommendation, who do I appeal that to? Knock and talk, compliance checks. In the city of San Diego in California, every knock and talk and compliance check is followed up with a report automatically to the DEA. What justifies you working with the federal government on cease and desist, on knock and talks, on compliance checks? What if you come to my house under a compliance checks and I'm exercising my right to bear arms? Am I going to get raided and arrested? Am I going to have guns and AK-47s put at my door because I was too poor to come into compliance? Y'all should have created rules and regulations a long time ago and not left it up to a paid organization to create rules and regulations that are so stiff. Do you know the only person that has actual immunity to this, and this is an attorney? An attorney who wrote this. Are we really giving full immunity to a prohibitionist? Somebody who has been making money off of the guise of victims who have been raided and arrested for cannabis? What if I can't speak up today? What if I have no computer? I live in Williamsburg, Missouri. I do not even have hi-fi wireless internet. Yes, you have it online. I can get on here, but what if I don't have access to do so?
Yeah.
I have so many questions. First, I recommend that we create a medical marijuana task force. I work diligently with the City of San Diego's medical marijuana task force. I sat on the mayor's medical task force. I've been to the United Nations and spoke on behalf of criminal and justice reform for cannabis. Do you think these 13 pages of regulations we're going to get through in 2 hours? Do you see your constituency? Do you see how many people? You just said 5 minutes isn't even going to be enough to see and hear everybody. Let's create a medical marijuana task force. Let's create a pilot program so the people who are truly in this for the right reasons, not people that are asking for more licenses. This is about the people who need cannabis for medicinal use. We have an endogenous endocannabinoid system. Do you know what that means? We have receptors in our body that light up every time we take cannabis. Like you have an iron deficiency, you take iron. Did you know that this is where science is? I urge you all to take a science-based approach on rules and regulations. And remember, first and foremost, that the patients are what matter here. Not big business, not big money, not 90% of the people behind me. Thank you for your time. I really hope you do the right thing.
Daryl Bertrand is up next, and then Connie Hendren will be after Daryl.
Hello, my name is Daryl Bertrand, and I'm the owner of Missouri Cannabis Consultants. We have been helping people get into the industry in competitive and non-competitive markets for 2 years now out of Missouri. I have 3 topics I'd like to discuss tonight. The first one is requiring mandatory random residual solvent testing. The first one is requiring mandatory random residual solvent testing before and after the extraction process to ensure safe, clean medicine is on the dispensary shelves. Second, I'd like the DHSS to retain control of the home cultivation process versus handing it over to the Department of Alcohol and Tobacco. Compassion versus enforcement for medical cannabis patients, please. Furthermore, after our company just went through the competitive application process in Arkansas, after what happened in the cultivation process, the state instantly had to go to an outside firm to score it. I highly suggest you guys do the same thing so there isn't kickbacks, paybacks, judges taking bribes, and everything else that happened in Arkansas will occur in this state unless the Department of Health and Senior Services has an outside firm score this, because they can handle it. We need independent outsiders to score this, or I know I'm going to be doing over 17 applications for clients. If it isn't done by an outside source, I will recommend every one of my clients sues the department. Thank you.
Connie Hendren, Ted Merritts will be after Connie.
Thank you very much for having this forum. My name is Connie Hendren. I'm a family farmer, and I have some regulation suggestions regarding outdoor cultivation. I'm just going to give them to you, give more people time to talk.
Thank you. Ted Merritts. George Nolan will follow him.
Hey guys, Ted Merritts here out of St. Louis. Just have a couple questions and recommendations here. To go to his point about random testing, I think that would be, sorry, can you guys hear me better? Okay, sorry. I think that we should have random testing at the testing facilities. I've seen in Colorado that renters of mine and competitors have been able to select which batches are tested, and that way they have a little bit of an upper hand on how those test results come out. So that's something to consider. I also think there should be regulation put in place so that processing facilities can process home grows that are the 6 plants that are medically allowed for patients. So I think that's an important part of regulation. What I've seen in Colorado is that a lot of these people who are growing at home come to us to process. We are not legally allowed to do it. In turn, they go home, try processing themselves, and end up getting hurt, start a fire, whatever it may be. So I would really like to see regulation in that area. I also had something to say about packaging rules, and I just want to be sure that that's diligent. And I want to offer a suggestion that we really focus on exit packaging. So essentially, if you go into a store in Colorado and pick out a variety of different products, not every single one of those products has to be child resistant, but at the end we put all the products in one bag that is child resistant. This would greatly reduce plastic cost use and just be better for the environment. And I think that's about all I have for you right now.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
George Nolan, and after George will be Jacqueline Patterson.
Hey guys, thanks for having us all here tonight. I just relocated from Portland, Oregon back to Missouri. I'm a cannabis grower. I had to leave the state a couple years ago to pursue my passions legally. And now I'm coming back to help some potential license holders start their cannabis cultivation facilities. What I want to talk to you guys tonight about is stocking those facilities with genetics. Immaculate conception. I would like to see us have 1 year from approval of a license for us to stock genetics outside the CDSL tracking system, because you're not going to have retail locations that have genetics that are already entered into that system. And the more time we give license holders to stock those genetics, the more variety we can offer to patients. That's the main thing I wanted to speak to you guys tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jacqueline Patterson, and then we'll have
Jonathan, is it Nicole or Nickel? Okay.
Hi. My name is Jacqueline Patterson, and I'm a medical cannabis advocate. I was forced to relocate to California 12 years ago, and because cannabis helps cannabis helps my speech, and it wasn't legal here at the time. I have worked in several dispensaries in California since then, and I would like to recommend that you guys allow for delivery, because there are going to be a lot of patients who cannot drive, and I don't know about the rest of the state, but the transit system in Kansas City isn't all that great for people who have disabilities. So in order to create full accessibility, there needs to be delivery. The second thing that I would like to say is that California's new regulations have not only created a huge plastic waste problem that I hope that your program endeavors to avoid, but that the high taxation is really driving people there back into the black market. And I also think that the state needs to create a compassion program, because very low-income patients are not going to be able to afford their medicine, and it's not tax deductible or recognized by the federal government, which means that you can't write it off on SSI. So I hope that you guys take that into consideration. Thank you.
Jonathan will be Mike Johnson.
Good evening. Can you hear me back there? Hi, thanks for having us. My name is Jonathan Nickel from Bryan Cade, Leighton Paisner. I've got a question, just sort of based on a rumor that I've heard on the security component of the application in terms of the experience and how that's going to be scored. and particularly protecting the interests of security personnel from Missouri who are Missouri residents, law enforcement folks, as opposed to scoring more high people who have cannabis protection and security experience that are from out of state. And the concern particularly, thank you, the concern particularly is we've got plenty of talented, very resourceful, very upstanding law enforcement and security personnel in the state already who are Missouri residents, and that scoring should be given in their preference instead of somebody who's coming from out of state who's got this experience who would get a score, and I think frankly should probably not be allowed to qualify because they are not a Missouri resident. So again, that's thank you. Thank you very much.
After Mike Johnson will be Commander Thomas Mundell, maybe.
Thank you very much. I'm Michael Johnson. He actually pretty much made my statement for me, so I just want to remind you guys, let's keep this in mind for people like her and the patients. Number one, the big businesses and the money coming out of state trying to get into business should be last to be considered. Let's keep this for us. Second thing, just the word marijuana, let's get rid of it. That's a derogatory term from the 20s. So let's move back to cannabis the way it should be. I don't know if you guys realize that term, but it was used to demonize not only blacks, but Hispanics and the plant. So let's get rid of that word, finally. We're done with it. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Commander Thomas, and then Stephen Faber will be after Thomas. Okay, we'll go on to Stephen, and then if Thomas shows up, come in after Stephen.
Thank you for all the good work you've been doing. Most of my suggestions I've already shared with you in one form or another. I did want to address a couple things that have occurred to me either before this meeting or while people were speaking. And one of those kind of near and dear to my heart, Missouri Cannabis Industry Association and our focus on patients, availability, safety, quality, and of course the industry, because if you don't have a robust industry, you don't have availability, you don't have safety, and you don't have quality. The Compassion Program, I like that a name was put on that. I would like to see DHSS somehow score a patient card if DHSS believes that that person is eligible to buy at a discounted rate. So if I'm a dispensary and I'm a compassionate dispensary, I would like to be able to sell at a discounted rate to people who have a star or some sort of check mark or something on their card that certifies that DHSS has believes that they are qualified and don't have the means to pay the full price. It was brought to my attention that, and this goes to quality, that in Colorado you can only buy seeds from a licensed breeder. And the bottom line, I've been told, it's a big problem. And I can't fathom what the reason for that might be. I don't know what why it was, why that rule was made in Colorado, but nobody likes it. It doesn't seem to be working. One other item that I may have already brought to your attention, but I did want to mention it here, is that there's a lot of talk about an application. Could be 200 pages, 500 pages, and you need to pay $100,000 or more to a professional to help you put that together. It shouldn't be like that. In Oklahoma, I don't have my finger on the exact regulation, but each item of the application process, each question, you're limited to a 5-page response to an individual question or an individual topic on the application. That will allow mere mortals to fill out their own application. With respect to availability, I've been told, I haven't researched it myself, that some states have a process for mobile dispensaries. We have a lot of rural areas in Missouri that may have trouble getting to dispensary, so I think a mobile dispensary, whether it's a individually licensed dispensary, or if it's a adjunct to a brick and mortar dispensary, I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm sure there is an answer. The question about delivery, whether a delivery service is allowed as part of a dispensary program, or if the transporters can do home dispensary, I think it's highly important. There's so many people with limited mobility, shut-ins, who are some of the people who are most in need of this medicine. So I'd like to see some sort of program to allow delivery to patients. There was a mention about the plastic situation in California. I'm waiting to see containers made out of hemp. Let's see, what else is on my list here? I think that about does it. Like I mentioned, a lot of my items have been already forwarded to you. I do see a disconnect between people who are so interested in protecting the profits of the business that they're paying a lot of money to get into, and the home growers. And one group trying to diminish or restrict or make sure home growers are restricted. Nowhere have I seen where the home grow has impacted the commercial market, no more than home brewing beer is impacted InBev. So I'd be very careful about restricting, overly restricting home grows. They tend to regulate themselves, especially with respect to security. If I've got some precious plants in my home, I'm going to make sure they're secure. I do agree with Dr. Pernikoff that more labs should be licensed, and that they should be allowed to inspect anybody's product. Because even if I'm a home grower, I want to know that I'm doing it right. I want to know that in the end, that my product is safe. Again, I do appreciate what you all have done, and in conversations, I do know that you're taking to heart that this is all about patients. And I really appreciate that. And I've been telling everybody who'll listen to me that that's where your heart is. So thank you.
Thank you. Is Commander Thomas Mundell, is he in the room?
He's on his way.
Okay.
He's on his way, sir.
Okay. Well, how about Dr. Douglas Olina? Go ahead and take Mr. Olina here, and then we'll.
Hi, thank you for listening. It's my understanding that veterans do not have access to medical marijuana because the doctors are not able to prescribe. Are there any rules in place for choosing or selecting a doctor outside of the VA system that also does not include the tremendous expense of becoming a patient in Missouri, outside the VA system, that will provide a recommendation for marijuana use? That's my question.
Thank you, sir. Thomas here yet?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. We'll just.
A little bit slow to walk.
That's okay. How about Robert Rives? Robert, you want to come up? And after him will be Kevin Marshall. Forgive me if I mispronounce any names. Maybe Reeves, or is it?
It's Reeves.
Reeves, okay.
It's Reeves.
With an I. Reeves
Very
with
few
an I.
people ever get it right, so thank you for having this forum. I'm here tonight. We're interested in becoming involved in attempting to be licensed in several of the different categories. One of them is to possibly have a grow facility. And of course, in order to amortize that, we'd have to have enough income over a period of time to make that economically feasible and possible. In examining Colorado, since their population is similar to ours, I believe that so far our language says that we'd have a minimum of 4 ounces per month allowable. I don't know that there's a limit on the other side of that. But in Colorado, I know that when they first introduced medical marijuana, they were allowed to provide for the patients as much as 2 ounces per day. So I'm hoping that the commission would look at that carefully, because we believe that in order to make the investment that would be required, we'd have to be able to amortize it. I thought that the gentleman that earlier made a point of somehow identifying the needy, if there was a way of comfortably, without embarrassing someone, identify the person who may need assistance, we'd really like to be able to help in that regard. So those are the two things that we wanted to make sure that you're considering. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And then Grant Emoff.
First off, I'd like to also say thank you for putting this together for us, to give us the opportunity to come in and speak with you guys. Amendment 2 requires that majority. Gotcha. Again, also, oh, wow, you're right, that is much louder. My name's Kevin Marshall. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm representing Cultivating Minds. We're looking at being a cultivation group out of Missouri. But my question really goes based off of all licensing. Amendment 2 requires the majority shareholder to be a Missouri resident for 1 year. Companies from out of state and country are planning on opening shop in Missouri on the backs of the Missouri residents, but that resident will not be the majority revenue beneficiary. That money will all be funneled out of state, and there's ads right now posting on LinkedIn for just that arrangement. We're hoping that DHSS will give the actual Missouri companies the chance in the run by Missouri residents to keep those profits in state, and who will benefit who will be in charge of that, and we want to make sure it benefits our communities. Second, additionally, we hope that the weight of the actual experience is equal to the classes or seminars or continued education. You know, people do bring experience into this, and we're hoping that you guys also look at that as a merit system possibly, you know, besides just some of the other education. And I want to know that they're actually going to be looking at protecting big money versus small money companies. I understand that tax dollars are very important, and that you obviously want to bring a cultivation group that's going to do a 30,000 square foot facility, but what about the guys that can only do 10,000 square feet? Will that be taken into consideration? That's all I have.
Grant Emoff. And then I believe it's Anthony Weeks.
Hi, thank you so much for letting me speak today. I just wanted to point out that I would like to see something in the form of equal opportunity for a diversity plan, and that to be graded so that minorities and people from economically disadvantaged areas have opportunity for business ownership. I think that's something that's been missed in other processes, and one to parallel that is Maryland. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is that the parallel to Oklahoma, if you do too relaxed of an application process, the numbers that they have put, there's 4,000 applications that have been accepted, 1,600 growers have been accepted since August, and 950 dispensaries. So the overinflux of that and that licensing is an open invitation to big money to swallowing up deceased assets. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony Weeks, then Charles Carney.
My name's Anthony Weeks, and I would like to see on the cheaper permit fees and all that, you know, and that it not need a lawyer to take care of getting the permit fee. And what I read through mine, it asked for out-of-state influences, you know, people that have been in the business before. I'd rather it not be anybody out-of-state influence in what I'm doing here. You know, I'd like to be all Missouri. And then on the helping people with disabilities that can't be mobile, I'd like to see a mobile dispensary, or it be something that is offered through the dispensary aspect of the whole, you know, process. And I had a couple other things, but you know.
Yeah. I understand.
He's calmer than I am. Well, and another thing.
I'll let you come back up. How's that?
Well, you know, I've talked to some outside state growers. I'm fixing to try to do the cultivation, grow, you know, be a processor, also doing the extracts and everything, because I see a real need for that. You know, you can't, kids can't smoke or ingest the THC, you know, so you need to process it so they can, you know, get their benefit from it too. And as far as like, you know, this thing about being intoxicated and driving and smoking and everything, I think it's crap. It's medication. I can take my other pharmaceutical medication and drive. You know, what's the difference is what I'm saying. You know, I don't really see a big difference in that part of it. But other than that, thank
you. Carney, and then we have, let's see here. Ellie McDaniel will be after him.
I'm Charles Carney. I'm from Plattsburgh, Missouri, and I'm representing C4 Cannacorp. We're in line for a cultivation facility. I want to talk a little bit about the basically responsible cannabis growth from an environmental standpoint, and some rules and regulations that I think we should probably look at to control cost as well as environmental impact. So looking at setting rules and regulations around gram per watt production, so setting minimum, setting minimum requirements for gram per watt production in cultivation facilities to allow for greenhouse operations and those things that have less environmental impact to have a more positive impact to the state, as well as setting some rules and regulations around energy consumption, so setting a minimum requirement for energy consumption from a renewable resource for cultivation facilities, as well as the water usage, so setting some minimum requirements around recycled or naturally collected water for usage in the cultivation scenarios. I think I also want to talk a little bit about, you guys mentioned earlier, an easy identification within the card for low income. I think that's a great idea, and I had it on my list, so I thought it was worth mentioning again, as well as a discounted scenario for the medical marijuana, prescription, right? So is there a way that we can identify those people in low-income areas for them to have access to doctors at a lower cost for this specific prescription? Whether that looks like some kind of a payback to the doctors through the medical marijuana tax collection, or however that looks. And then to the last guy's point, a focus on us as lifelong Missouri residents, maybe even a look at those folks that are putting in for an application that get bonus points for being lifelong Missouri residents. Yes. This residents that because to their point, we can't afford, there's very few people in this state that are going to be able to afford to stand up 30,000 square foot grow facilities. 10,000 square foot is a maximum probably for what could be afforded by someone locally. So I definitely want you guys to take a look at that. And then lastly, it goes back to the environmentally sound practices. So somebody mentioned earlier, what are we going to do with refuse from the marijuana plants? So some specific regulations around composting as a requirement for refuse. So composting would be a requirement, either be done on site in a secured facility, or if you don't have that ability, by some licensed type of entity that can collect that and compost it in a secured site. And then just some specific rules around that. That waste needs to be ground to an unidentifiable standpoint before compost. And I still got a minute and 23 seconds, so that's amazing. I did have a question, and it's more, or a suggestion. The language on the local municipality's ability to control and hinder is very vague. I would love to see some basically clarification around that specifically states that the local municipality cannot contradict the existing language in the amendment.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, I think we have Ellie McDaniel, and then we'll have Lance Johnston.
Hello, Ellie McDaniel with Missouri Medical Manufacturing. We hope to get a cultivation license and possibly a processing license. One thing would be, if you get a cultivation license at a location, I would like to see something in there. If something happens along the road and you need to move from that location, is there going to be a way that you can submit a form and actually move your facility, or are you going to be stuck there forever, and if something goes wrong, you just got to shut down? So I would bring up that. Also, making sure that doctors are getting as much education on medical marijuana as possible, because people are going to be going to them and asking, and right now a lot of them are probably going to say, I don't know anything about it. So that would be nice. Also, talking about patients' access, I would love to see drive-through dispensaries. A lot of people aren't going to be able to get out of their car to go in there. You could easily post on those drive-throughs that you have to be over a certain age to be in the car when they're through the drive-through, and that could keep kids from being right there whenever they're making the purchase. But if someone can't get out of their car to walk into the dispensary, that would help with that problem as well. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Lance Johnston.
Hi, I'm Lance, and I'm here from companionmag.com, and out of all the things that I felt that we could talk about, I wanted to mention out-of-state patients. We have patients that, would have been patients here in Missouri had they not had to go to other states. They need to be able to come back home and bring their medication with them. And the way it's written right now, I believe they can come back home currently with their medication due to, Section 5, Paragraph 1, the last sentence. Basically states that our patients are accepted from other states. So therefore, if we have an Oklahoma patient who comes into Missouri where they have medication available, shouldn't they be able to bring it home? And that's something that I'd like to make sure that gets known to the public as soon as possible, so family members can come home or at least come visit. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's my last form. Did you want to speak? Mine? Yeah, you got it. Yeah, be sure to get us a form though, okay? Yeah, absolutely. All righty.
I apologize, thanks. I got here early, so I didn't get a form, but I'll fill it out. My question and issue, not even issue, oh, sorry, it's Louis Moynihan, a longtime Missouri resident. Happy to be here. Our firm, marketing consulting firm, We represent a lot of companies that take advantage of the work opportunity tax credit. For those of you that aren't familiar, this is basically giving tax breaks to companies that hire felons. So my question to you guys is, what are we going to be able to do here? Because I don't know if you ever trimmed buds before, ever ran machinery, but it's not fun. And there's not going to be one person in this room that I promise you that is going to want to do some of these jobs that we're going to be offering in this industry. So what I'm saying is I've got a lot of guys, I'm not talking about murderers, I'm talking about felons that need a role in this industry, that need jobs. I'm not talking about your CFOs, your COOs, but laborers. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, we have some time, but I really appreciate a form with a name if you guys want to. You want to come on up and then get us a form, okay? All right, appreciate it. State your name and where you're from.
Thanks. Robert Powell from Columbia, Missouri. I'm a member of Midmo Normal and MOCIA.
Speak up, sir.
Robert Powell from Columbia, Missouri. I'm a member of Midmo Normal and MOCIA. I'd like to say, along with in line with some of the other people's comments, that this is about Missouri. It needs to stay about Missouri. If you're not living in Missouri, you shouldn't be able to do what you want to do just because your dollars are bigger than me or anybody else in Missouri. What I'd like to see people do, what I'd like to see you guys do, is look at their liquid assets. I would like to see, if me, Robert Powell, I'm saying I want to open up a dispensary, I want you to come in, I want you to be able to look at my money, because it's going to be a lot of people using other people's money. And that's fine if you're from Missouri and the money stays in Missouri. But like somebody else said earlier, if that money's not staying in Missouri, because of the legal issues with how money is being banked right now, that money can be funneled anywhere. It could go, like I said, anywhere. Another one of my strong stands is that I like to see the industry, I like to see you guys create the delivery service like this. Because people think that if you're driving and you're medicating, that's an issue. I like a separate entity to create the delivery services. So like you got security people that are going to be helping out dispensaries and cultivators facilities and stuff like that. I like to see an entity team up with dispensaries and cultivators or whatever, and link up with the customers, create a website and all these type of things. The customer calls or looks on the website, the entity intercepts the data or whatever the case, and they go and take the delivery to the customer. That way, the dispensary's not primarily involved. You got some kind of security system in the car, like a safe or a cooler, protected by locks or whatever needs to be done. And now you got a Uber cannabis or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So that way, you would stop a lot of the, kind of like the dime bag in the back of the alley type cliches from, getting out there. I just think it's an avenue for people who may not be able to do 10,000 square feet to get a dispensary. They might be able to start up a business like that. There's a lot of opportunities out here for everybody, but what I'm starting to see is a lot of greed.
Okay. Yeah, you've already spoke, so you come like we've got a form on you, we get you, okay.
Dr. Pernicoff again. Yeah. So for the future, I understand even states like California have a long experience with the products, are still not allowed to use any CBD or any products for their animals. And I think that this is something that's going to be happening. It needs to be happening. I'm a veterinarian of 36 years, so I get the value of it. And all I'm asking is that in the materials you create, that you don't create something so strict as they have in other states, that it doesn't have to go through a whole brand new process when we start to develop and be able to bring in the science that supports the use in pets. I'd like to have some loose language that will allow us just to continue to addend the whatever is formed, okay?
Then we've got some more. James Stevens will be next. And, oh, I'm sorry. What was your name?
I'm not on a form.
Oh, okay.
I need to get one.
All right, we'll get you and then James Stevens.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, James.
My name's Anthony Weeks, Lebanon, Missouri. Anyway, I was sitting back there thinking, and you said if I come up with another on the caregivers being able to sell, I would strongly recommend no on that. 16 plants to last a year is not that much, and if they, you know, have a harvest and they don't put it back for the patient and they sell it all, then what's the patient going to do next month, you know? So I would strongly recommend no on the caregiver being able to sell what's left over. There shouldn't be anything left over if they're doing it like they're supposed to be doing it. And that's about all I got.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can get a form, okay?
Thanks, yes, I promise I'll get you all a form.
Name and address.
My name is Rachel Redler, and I'm from Kansas City.
Okay.
And I have written in about this, but I wanted to get it out in the open as well. I feel like we should allow for provisional licenses in the granting of licenses, which would allow folks like me who are not independently wealthy to get acceptance of a license on a provisional basis of then getting our properties. So if I have to apply and have a property in hand, or even a lease agreement in hand, that's a lot more money that possible investors might not want to put in. So for someone like me who is small business, lifetime resident of Missouri, we need that ability to apply with all of our ducks in a row, and then to find the funding from people who can say, yes, we're committed, we know you can do this job, the state knows you can do this job, so now go find your property. Another point that I just picked up on by listening, and I don't know how to do this. If I did, I'd run for office, but avoiding lobbying and kickbacks is just such a huge thing. Good luck, because I don't know how to do it, but it is so important. I've heard a lot of rumors about big business trying to muscle in from some politicians, beverage distributors, just a lot of big business that I've heard about scamming people, just trying to muscle in, and it makes folks like me and my business partners, my mom, really nervous. And my last point is this compassionate care, so important, and the people that really need this, the folks that are disabled, that can't get out, the people that can't afford it. I didn't even think about the lady who brought up that people don't have health care. I mean, just such a huge deal. So how can we help the people that need it? I have family members that struggle with addiction, that this would be such a benefit to them, but you know, they can't afford it. So how do we help those folks? Thank you. I promised you a form.
James Stevens, and then Teresa Lane will be after James. Is it cold in here?
I'm James Stevens. I'm from Perry, Missouri. I'm going to be growing in Rawls County. My own suggestion, we're hoping to apply for a cultivation license. I see that the state law requires that it's going to be up to 61 cultivators for the state. I would hope that we go more than that. But I'd like to see it based off state population like Colorado does. They have almost 1,200 cultivators, and they have a lower population than we do. Sometimes they have trouble supplying their dispensaries. I was hoping to see a number higher than that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Teresa Lane, and then we have Aaron Stone.
Hi, first of all, thank you for having us here. I appreciate being here and having this open forum. I think it speaks to a statement of transparency, and I appreciate that to start with. All right, so I'm going to keep it pretty quick. I have a short list for you, but I'm going to start off with the pricing. It's too expensive. Please make it more affordable. I do want Missouri to earn some of the money off of this industry in order to improve our community. I think that that's equally important. but at the same time, please make it more affordable and reasonable for the average citizen. Let's see, I would like to see more language that encourages banks. So I know that we have some federal language that encourages it, but it's not enough, because banks are not jumping on board to support this industry, and no one wants to carry a bunch of cashiers asking to get robbed. I have a bit of an issue with the legal cannabis industry experience. I think that's hard to obtain, and that you're asking for outside state influences in that. And I would like to see it be reduced maybe to a proof of consulting instead of the mandation of having that person on your board. I know that we've spoken a lot to making Missouri patients and Missouri citizens top priority, and I definitely agree with that. But I also want to make room for the investors from the outside that do want to bring business and economy and industry to Missouri as well. So prioritize Missouri citizens first, but I think that there's a small portion for them as well. We can't keep all outside money outside and expect to be successful. And then my last point would be protection for jobs and state benefits for patients of cannabis. So right now, people will be fearful of their jobs and their benefits that could greatly affect their lives, and I think we should add in protections for those people. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Stone and then Clarinda Davis.
Hi, my name's Aaron Stone. I'm here visiting from Columbia, Missouri. I'm representing a team of growers, compliancy specialists, as well as all-around handymen that share work, trade. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous. I didn't really think this was going to be such a large session here today. Our team, we're spread out through Nevada, Colorado, as well as California, and collectively, we've helped operations with compliancy measures, as well as some of these stakeholder meetings that are happening today. The problems I've seen in the past have been initial plants. I'm curious of the grace period of how we're gonna, let's say we get approved on these licenses, where are we gonna start with the genetics? If local communities can bring in heirloom genetics for a short grace period, there's been decades of breeding going on in other states that have proven to show strains that have higher percentages to heal patients, as well as lower percentages for patients who don't need as high a dose of medicine. So I would like to see that there is some sort of grace period allowing local communities to bring in heirloom genetics. Otherwise, where's our starting point when these licenses are approved? Where's the first seed? Where's the first clone, et cetera? Testing for all growers and as processing, I think, should be equally focused on. I've seen in Colorado that a lot of the caregivers, someone else mentioned, are in a situation to process at home. They've, go on YouTube and they have no formal experience. I think having a system to where they can go to their local dispensary, that dispensary can weigh it on site, make a manifest, and then send it off to the cultivation facility for a fee, or whatever the case may be, is important. Avoiding all home processing is very important for public health and safety. I think independent audits or state-sponsored audits for the testing labs is important. I've seen that California, as well as Colorado, has had issues with the facts adding up, whether it's potency or contaminants. I think that audits at these places, especially if you're only going to have 2 testing facilities, that they are matching up with the results they're giving out to the public. Bio-waste was mentioned as well. I think that you should focus on that and make sure that there's an independent company or a required company to come pick up bio-waste. It just avoids, burglaries and any sort of threat to the facility. People who don't have knowledge will break into the trash cans thinking they're going to get something when it's just a bunch of stalks, and then it's littered out for the community to see. That's happened in Colorado as well. Exit packaging, if we look at just limiting to a exit bag as opposed to every single item being child-proof, we're going to lower our footprint drastically. I know that Colorado seems to not have clarity on that, and what you have is when you get home an exit bag that has 10 plastic things. By the time you get to your medicine or recreational product, you have a pile of plastic packaging. So if we could just limit that to one child-proof exit, that also will leave vendors and cultivators a lot of cost reduction and overhead reduction, because packaging seems to be a big component in budgeting with a lot of the licenses that we've helped with compliancy and other projects. I guess my closing piece would be, we do plan to get in line to apply for cultivation as well as processing, and hopefully help consult other parties through that walk as well. There's just a lot of unclarity. I'd like to see the website list as much more information as possible. The way it looks now is that we can submit a very vague application, give you our money, but we won't hear a word from you until August. That leaves myself and my team a little weary to move forward really until August, because we can put a lot of time into site development and other things, knowing that your enforcement team isn't even going to address our application for months on end. I think also figuring out a pilot program for caregivers and patients to start getting the ball rolling will be huge. You're going to bring in a lot of experience, people growing at home, getting medicine. You want to have as much Missouri talent coming into the market as possible, and if these people can get a jump start now, get familiar with Amendment 2, it's going to give them a chance. And then also, we are considering a percentage of our employees be mandatory local to the county which we're applying, which is Columbia or Boonville. So I think that every applicant should have something in place to where they're hiring at minimum a percentage of the local community they choose to root in, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Clarinda Davis and then Matthew Overcast.
Hello, I'm Clarinda Davis, and I'm a realtor from Columbia, and I'm also a lupus survivor. I would like to see some type of program where there's diversity and inclusion of women, minorities, and veterans in the application process. I look around in this room, there's politicians, there's lawyers, and across the bridge, the same people, my cousins, family members, friends who were selling marijuana are in jail right now for doing the same exact thing that all these investors are here to do. My second concern is, how do you plan on making it fair for, I don't know if you've seen on the news, but the prison outbreaks here all over the state where it's not a nice place to be. Those people come out with PTSD. It's worse than going to war sometimes. As far as I can see, they won't be able to treat their stress and anxiety because they'll be on probation, they'll be getting dropped on. And I think there should be some provisions for people who've been released from the correctional center so they can release their anxiety, be healthy, and go get a job and live in society and do the right thing. But we can't do that if there's restraints as far as that goes. So I would like to see, like I said, diversity, medicine for everybody, not just people with money or people who can, like the lady said, people who can get to it. And also, I would like to see some kind of patient board set up. Once again, if you watch the news, we got an opiate problem that is out of control. And I feel like if we had patients, not investors, not lawyers, not politicians, a board of patients who use the plant, benefit from it, that can oversee this process so it doesn't get out of hand like the opioid problem.
Matthew Overcast and Jeffrey Lazansky.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Overcast, and I represent Show Me Natural Gardens. We'll just do open mic style. My name is Matthew Overcast. I'm from Avon, Missouri, representing Show Me Natural Gardens. We're going to be a vertically integrated operation.
Mick Jagger, that microphone.
We can do it. My wish for this program is that it be cannabis by Missourians for Missourians. there should be incentives given to applicants who make it a focus to bring jobs to their communities, to ensure they have a plan on how to make medicinal cannabis available to the low-income patients. We did trips to Washington, Colorado, and some of these other places. I mean, prices are high. So startup costs are high. So there needs to be that focus there. When it comes to outdoor cultivation applications, they should be judged against outdoor cultivation applications. I've spoken to several people in the industry who are discouraging outdoor applications for cultivation. While it's only once a year for a harvest, it is ideal in keeping costs low. And I think that is important for our Missouri patients. Additionally, something I wanted to bring up was about transportation licenses. In some states, I believe, I've seen that you have to have a license to transport. I think it makes sense and it's sensible to allow licensed facilities to transport between each other. We shouldn't have to pay an extra fee to the state to do something we're already doing. If it's an independent business who's solely transportation, then that's something that needs to be regulated and overseen. But otherwise, it should be allowed as long as you hold a valid license and good standing in the state of Missouri. Lastly, just think about the small town cultivator. I mean, like I said, for Missourians, by Missourians. And to do that, you need to think about the small town cultivator, not out-of-state business bringing in big money to build these 30,000 square foot facilities. We should think about a build-out plan that allows the average Missourian to produce cannabis for Missourians. That's it.
Jeffrey, and then Mr. Leatherberry.
Good job.
Hello, my name is Jeff Pisansky. I'm an Air Force veteran, 4 years, and also a drug war veteran, 22 years in prison, a little over 3 years on parole. I'm off of parole now, but I can't do nothing with this industry, unfortunately. But there's a lot of other people out there that can't do nothing as well. And that's a shame. We're taking jobs away from people that really need jobs to stay out of prison. And I thought that's what it's all about, is to help people. But there's other concerns for me. We fixed it where people from out of state can come in and use their cards and go to our dispensaries and buy things. Where are they going to use them at? They have to go home to their residence, don't they? Well, they're going to drive it home, fly it home. Most of them don't have residence here in Missouri. Maybe we need to open up some coffee houses or some place that they can go to consume what they buy here. Otherwise, it's pretty well useless. So, besides getting the industry up, I commend you. It's about time. And let's get some license out so everybody here can start growing on their own.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Leatherberry? Leatherberry?
L. Leatherberry?
L. Leatherberry, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
That's me. That's my
Yeah.
first name.
L,
Sorry.
okay.
Yes, L.
All right. And then Ty is going to speak.
Yes,
too.
he's my
Okay.
son.
Go ahead.
We're the mom and pop.
All right.
My mom, 77, has helped us with this, and we are in our retirement and everything to do this because we love it. We're compassionate. We want to serve the rural area. We're from Lake the Ozarks, Missouri, there, Osage Beach area. It got out because we purchased a building already. We're applying for dispensary and grow. We're overachievers. And so the word's gotten out, and I can't even tell you how many hundreds of messages I've gotten, private messages of people, mothers with children that need access to this, veterans, handicapped people, people with cancer. It's overwhelming. I've been 3 days trying to return all these messages that people are so happy and have said to us, God bless you for doing this. We know what a big risk it is. And I'm like, yeah, it's a big risk. But you know what? We're ready, and whatever happens, whether we procure a license or not, we're very happy it's here, and we intend to support it fully. And I also want to talk to other ones briefly about, remember to consider charities that we can help with this. We're going to be setting up Cannabis Cares, it's called, and as soon as we can drop the first big amount into that account, we're going to be going out and asking everybody to donate to help with this opioid crisis. We have got a very extensive, very good detailed plan. My husband and I will have no access to the money. It will be set, it will be overseen by professional people that I had worked with in the banking industry. That's where I retired from. My husband's a 23-year veteran. We came here in 2005. He retired a few years ago, and we love it, and we've made it our home. We did sell our house in 2016. We gave everything we owned away, and we bought an RV, and we've been traveling for since then, except we've still lived in Missouri, but we've traveled and come back for a few months, traveled again. We've gone around to all these dispensaries all over, and we've been doing research on this, and this is so needed. And I just want to thank you guys so much for heading this up. I know it's huge and crazy, and I went into Osage Beach and they're like, we don't know anything. I said, we don't either. We just want to tell you what our plan is. But anyways, I do hope that we do leave room for mom and pop people and veterans and people like that that want to get into it. We are very concerned with making it affordable. I don't care. We're not out to be Scarface. We want to help people. This is not something, you have to be compassionate for us to give up everything we've given up for it. So I want to focus on the patients. The rural areas are very important. And I've had people reach out to me, are you going to have delivery? I said, I don't know what we're going to be able to do, but we'll tell you anything we can do, we're 1,000,000% on board to help you. And we will try to get it figured out. We're going to open our dispensary and start, well, our hopefully dispensary, to start educational programs. We're going to start doing this in May and June. We've got some medical professionals lined up to come in, and we hope to have enough information to help people that can go get their cards. And hopefully, we're in the military medical system, and they're not happy to talk about it. So we need other doctors that are out there, like other states have. They have some doctors that are particularly for this. And we need to make sure that they're helped, because veterans are suffering awful with all these medications they're giving them, and they're not helping. And we have people reaching out to us and we're like, we can't do anything, it's illegal. We're not going to do anything illegal to jeopardize anything. And everybody understands that, but we get it. And I just want to thank you guys for getting it, and hope that you will make sure that the mom and pop in rural areas, and discounting for people who are low income to come into the dispensary and have a discount, a nice discount they can afford. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sweet.
Hi. Hard act to follow. Very hard act to follow. My name is Ty. As my mother said a moment ago, we're hoping to open a dispensary and okay, we're going off stand. We're hoping to open a dispensary and possibly cultivate as well. And I wanted to know something about the licensure for cultivation. We're talking about permits coming with 30,000 square feet. I think it's pretty clear among everyone here that we want to keep this for Missourians, by Missourians. Everyone's made that emphatically clear. And as someone said before, most people in state are going to be looking at more like 10,000 square feet. And as someone who wants to start up cultivating, I don't want to look in the faces of these other hopefuls knowing that I could be hoarding 20,000 square feet that I won't use, that they can't touch and benefit from. So I'm just hoping that we can find something that's more getting the same square footage for more permits, because I don't want one person hoarding a bunch of square feet that they can't use, that's land that other people aren't benefiting from in cultivating. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Sean Stevens will be next, and then Buddy Hyde will be after Sean.
Good evening. My name is Sean Stevens. I'm with the All-American Cultivation and Extraction out of Dixon, Missouri. Just a couple questions, or just want to clarify. We're trying to get dispensaries open around January 2020, beginning beginning of January, is from my understanding. We're also going to have licenses or start accepting applications in August. That does not really leave that much time to be able to get cold production started and get out to the patients. We're trying to keep money here in Dixon. Or I'm sorry, yeah, I want money in Dixon too. Here in Missouri, is there going to be any plan or a kind of influence for you to be able to talk to the banks and get Missouri banking to support the Missouri cannabis industry? We just know that there's a need to be able to get things out as quick as possible to the patients. Hopefully you guys can have some sort of influence on the banking industry for the cannabis industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde, Buddy Hyde. And then Eric McSwain would be next.
Thank you. My name is Buddy Hyde. I'm out of Springfield, Missouri. Got a few things. I'm going to email you quite a bit as well in regards to the verbiage of some of the things that have been written. But not that, since it's not a Q&A, I'll email those to you. But first thing I just want to touch on is the transportation. I'm for the actual license holders being the ones who are able to transport their product and not having another company in order to do so. There's point of sale systems currently in place for other states that allow us to manifest and create a chain of custody in order to professionally and adequately deliver product to and from. That will create reducing a lapse of product when needed. Maybe your dispensary is low and vice versa. So that's just kind of my first thing is to keep the license holders in charge of transportation and then can still have some of those delivery options available. Exit packaging, I'm for that. It's a great idea. However, when you're home, if you take it out of that, what's to say you don't have some of it in your bedroom, some of it in your kitchen. I am kind of for the child-proof packaging on most products if we can do that. Third, obviously there's patients that do not live in Missouri right now due to medical conditions, so they are refugees of the program as far as needing, cannabis as a treatment. One of a great acquaintance of mine was diagnosed with benign brain tumor, moved out to New Mexico, and actually he's a successful businessman out there and owns a grow and dispensary company out there and has lived there over 2 years. So now he in fact wants to obviously move back to Missouri. He just had a baby with his wife, and so they've had to be medical refugees and move out, obviously, and so now he'd like to be back in because this is where his family is. However, he's really unable to apply due to being gone 2 years. So I don't think out-of-state people necessarily need to be able to apply. That's not what I'm saying. I just say there is a certain population that have had to leave, and there should be some weight in that when they try to come home. And last and foremost, all this is to provide care for patients that need medicinal cannabis for treatment. Yet in the verbiage on here, it says that it needs to be a physician certification. I think we need to rely, especially in some of our rural communities, there aren't always physicians. There's collaborative physicians that are not there. So we need to rely on some of our nurse practitioners, our physician's assistants, who are still, adequate medical professionals in order to be able to issue some of these cards without an actual physician supervision. Now, of course, again, doctors are often on the links or on the beach, so when I go to the doctor, I typically don't actually see a doctor. Not a lot of people know that. Oftentimes it's a nurse practitioner or physician's assistant. So I think they need to be relied on. They've been to enough schooling. They know how to diagnose and have DEA numbers, so why couldn't they be able to diagnose with these cards? So, thank you.
Eric, and then Adela, want to speak again? Adela Hall.
Good evening.
Hi.
Eric McSwain, Fayette, Missouri. I have just, first of all, one comment to back up the speaker earlier. Yes, marijuana is a bad word. I know it's enshrined in our Constitution at this point, and there's not much can be done about that, but I think we can do, something about it otherwise. So, first of all, I agree the DHS should be the determining body for economic brakes on the medicines. That has to do with patient confidentiality. They don't need to be trying to plead a case at their local dispensary to get a discount. It needs to be right there discreetly on their card. I agree with the comments about genetic stock. This is important, not so much for any other reason than a misstep in the regulations could create a genetic bottleneck or containment, so that not only are Missouri patients out all of the choices that they may have otherwise, but also that ultimately breeding stock will lose its vigor and plants will become sick. Regarding outdoor growing, regulations should not stand in the way of proper growing practices. For example, outdoor lights at a cultivation facility, because of a security regulation, will pretty much destroy any chance of growing outdoors. Those plants need for it to be dark at night. Home growers should be able to test, but should not be required to test for some of the same reasons you've heard tonight. First and foremost, that props up the testing facilities so that they have more business. Second, the home growers know what they have. Third, perhaps then they can ship their items off to a proper infused product facility for concentration. We should allow trimming by third parties. This would be a great benefit for our patients who have, for example, severe arthritis or other movement-related impairments that would keep them from trimming and harvesting properly. We need to keep the regulations low for our home growers. It should not be an encumbrance, but on the same token, that also means they should not be able to do anything economically with any surplus for those same reasons. Transportation folks should be allowed even outside of the facility. The market will dictate whether or not these folks have jobs. We don't need to do that via regulation. Big facilities may wish to hire couriers for such a thing. Additionally, trimmers, any other plant touching businesses like our couriers need not have a medical card, right? While a facility would be free to prefer people with medical cards for whatever their reasons are, that shouldn't be state regulated. That'll immediately cut the body of potential workers down to about 3% of the state population for these businesses, and we don't want to do that. I don't believe we should have pharmacists or doctors as a mandate at dispensaries. I think this is a great idea, don't get me wrong. And for those dispensaries who go that extra mile, they're going to get to be known by their patients for doing so, and they will enjoy the additional sales because of it. However, that is an economic hurdle to starting a dispensary should it be regulated. In the same vein, regulations regarding biodegradable packaging and all of those other sorts of things, I think we need to stay away from those regulations. If you are a conscientious cultivator, for example, and you use regenerative processes and permaculture and all that fun stuff, make sure your customers know it so that you'll get the sales you deserve. Now finally, I would say also that, and this is purely business, unlike my other points, I would really strongly encourage the department to at some point employ the ability to accept cash. I know there are great hurdles in doing so. However, if I'm a cultivator, I do not want to have someone on my staff visiting the grocery store every day of the week to turn cash into money orders, because that is literally the only way I'm going to be able to do it without a bank being involved. And we know at this point banks will probably not be involved. So that's a danger to the local communities. Criminals are going to be able to spot this trend pretty quickly, and we want to limit having to carry around all that cash. Right? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll be really quick. We've never talked about in any of this a licensed kitchen or certification of scales. We also really didn't talk about each municipality having the right to govern and use, like, for example, zoning to say that we're not going to allow any dispensaries or any grows or any licensing in that district, which municipalities usually have the availability to do so. What's a 90-day supply and what's a 60-day supply? If I'm growing my own cannabis and I go over your 4 ounces a month that I'm storing in my own house, am I violating any of the rules or regulations? And lastly, I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with testing standards. So when you test cannabis, you send a piece to a lab, and they then match it to their standard. Who's going to be growing that standard? And is it going to be used by both testing facilities? So if you're growing pot and you're using that standard, and you're growing cannabis and you're using that standard, see, I'm using semantics, right? So, right, because that's why we go to prison, it's because semantics. So your standard that you tested with that facility is not the same as a standard from that facility. How often are you going to regulate the standards? THC deteriorates, and after 30 days you have to redo that standard. So I don't think we're thinking outside the box. See, what you're asking for are questions that are hindsights. So what we need to be looking at is what's failed and what's been good in other states. Nobody's talking about standards. We're just talking about 2 testing facilities. We're not really getting into it, but your scales need to be certified. Who's the bureaucracy that we're going to create to do these things? And those are the sort of questions that I get really worried about, is these gray areas. Because in a court of law, that's what throws us in jail, is gray areas. Semantically speaking, a flowering plant is just the male plant. When it starts to go, the female's producing colas. So you said the flowering plant. Technically, you're just talking about the male. So, I mean, this is all just pretty interesting stuff. I just think that we're not thinking outside the box, and just know that standards have to come from somewhere. And I may be a better grower than some people. So I may grow more in my outdoor harvest and keep for my personal use, and I may fall above what you guys are saying is a 6-month or 90-day supply. So I just would like for y'all to keep that in. Thing. Thank you.
Okay, Mike and Tate Arnone. I pronounced that right. And then Drew Hicks will be next.
Good evening. My name is Mike Arnone, and this is my wife Tate, and we are from Kansas City. I'm a born and raised Kansas City local. My wife is a transplant from Zimbabwe, but she is a naturalized citizen and is happy to be in Missouri. I don't have a lot to say, but just to reinforce some of the things that have been said tonight, and maybe a couple of suggestions. One, on the medical advisors, or the in-house medical. The doctor on site. I think somebody mentioned that maybe an RN would be sufficient for that. I know in Arizona that's one of the requirements, that you have a medical director on site. I would just say that, just from personal experience, that I never believed in chiropractors. I'm not a chiropractor, but I've dealt with different pains from sports and just working out and just life. And when I was in a car wreck, I saw a chiropractor for the first time in my life. And that was the treatment that I received from a chiropractor alleviated my pain, and it's something that I continue to this day on a monthly basis. And so I think for Missouri that a qualifying medical director, maybe we should consider chiropractors as well. I think they're more than qualified to, because they specialize in pain management without prescribing opiates, and it works. The other thing is immaculate conception. For those in the room that may not understand what people are referring to, is if you get a license to grow marijuana, where does the first seed come from? Where does the first clone come? Where does the plant come from? How do you get it here? So I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know what Missouri's going to regulate or enforce or not enforce, or how that's going to happen, but it's a consideration that I never really thought of, but I think it's one that you guys will give proper attention to. Another thing, to the testing standards, I'm sure you guys will do a good job at providing guidance to those testing facilities. Just from my own personal reading, I understand that there are obviously different machines and different technologies. It seems like the gas chromatography is very important. It also depends, the type of machine that you test with depends on what you're testing. If you test a flower that somebody's going to ingest by smoking, then gas chromatography would be the standard. If you're testing edibles or food or whatnot, there's other machines that are used in the testing, and I just want to make sure that Missourians are protected and that they know what's in the medicine that they're consuming. Finally, the application process, it's daunting for everybody in this room. I don't understand why you would really need to pay $50,000 to $100,000 to some consultant from another state to teach me how to fill out an application. I'm more than qualified. I'm a licensed Missouri attorney since 2004, and I can read an application and I can fill one out. I'm not here tonight to offer my services to anybody, so that's not a plug. But it should be something that I can understand and something that I can fill out and something that people that are not attorneys can read and understand. I think that will make your job easier. It will make our job easier. Everybody's job will be easier if it's just in layman's terms. And obviously, you know, the requirements are going to be, if you guys can spell out the rules and the regulations that we need to comply with, then we'll be able to answer appropriately. If there's a lot of ambiguity, then it's going to require $50,000 out of my pocket, and I don't think that's fair for anybody.
No, I think you said it.
So the last thing, I want to thank you all for your service. I'm sure you're working a lot of hours, and the work hasn't begun yet. But most importantly, I want to thank the voters of Missouri that voted this Amendment 2 into law. Let's give. Thank you.
Thank you. Drew Hicks, and then we have Desmond Morris.
Hi, sorry, you guys have me nervous the first time I came up here. So basically, I'm from District 6, St. Joseph, Kansas City, Cameron, Hamilton. So we have 1,886 disabled veterans. On the verbiage on the possession of the firearm. So are we going to, as a veteran, am I going to lose my rights if I get a card? Am I not going to be able to possess it at all? Am I going to lose my rights to possess it and medical cannabis at the same time? Am I going to lose my rights to purchase a firearm? I mean, I know I see a lot of suits in here, but I see some Caterpillar boots too. So I don't know how that's necessarily going to work, because I can tell you right now that nobody's going to hand over their guns willingly. I'm not trying to address it like that, but we've got plenty of hunters in this room right now. So I totally understand, hey, you don't want me to have Eddies and a shotgun. Yeah, that sounds cool. That's reasonable. But telling me I can't go purchase a new firearm, that's kind of ludicrous. And then back to the genetics. The genetics things, if you guys don't allow genetics from other states, well, there's going to be a lot of black market stuff. I mean, even with the growers who are backed with the big money, they're going to have somebody down the line that's going to do some black market stuff to go to Oregon or Denver and get the Northern Rec or the Green Crack or the Sour D. It's going to end up being here, and if we don't allow it, all it's going to do is the seeds that are purchased here in Missouri are going to disappear and get replaced with those seeds, and we're going to get new names for the same strains that we already got. Now, you guys allow the genetics to come here, that gives us a chance and the breeders a chance to breed our own new plants and to bring all those strains in here. And then also, you guys, not so much you, the state, but we need to stop the cities from zoning it industrial. I mean, it's supposed to be accessible. Especially in my area, there's a lot of rural area back out there. There's a lot of countryside and all that, but there's also a lot of poor neighborhoods who people can't just make it out all the way to the industrial area. I mean, I don't see why we're going to put the dispensaries or allow the city to put the dispensaries out next to the XXX bar that's, on the side of the highway. It's not a liquor store. So, I mean, that's all. I just wanted to address that before I left. Thank you.
Desmond. And then we have Joni Harshman after Desmond.
I want to thank the department for having this event and your hard work in putting all this together. I can't imagine what you guys are going through. My name is Desmond Morris, and I'm from Springfield, Missouri, and we're looking to do a cultivation, manufacturing, and dispensary in Springfield. And I just wanted to kind of echo on some of the other things that were brought up today, and also add a few more testing licenses. Two, I don't think it's going to cut it. You know, I think that there's going to be a log jam with regards to testing. And I also will echo that the state needs to really take a look at those testing facilities and make sure that they're operating appropriately. I suggest that we, if possible, accept patient cards from other states. Okay, I see, you know, if you live, say, on the east side of St. Louis or the west side of Kansas City, you know, how is that going to work? You know, people coming into the state, you know, that might need treatment, you know, ways for them to have access to it. I think that we should, as part of the department, start an opioid alternative pilot program. This would allow access for medical cannabis for who could receive prescriptions or already have prescriptions for opioids. You know, that's really, really important to me. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about, you know, not necessarily bonus points, but some sort of diversity plan in place to kind of, you know, give minorities and females a chance to, you know, kind of run these businesses. You know, and this goes into a big topic, but, you know, if you look at the 2010 census, African Americans are incarcerated at 5 times the rate per 100,000 people than any other race in this state, okay? And a large percentage of those incarcerations are due to minor drug offenses, you know? So, it's important to me that you know, we take into account how minorities have been disproportionately negatively impacted by the state's marijuana policy up until this point. Like I said, I really appreciate the work you're doing, and thanks for your time.
Joni, and then we have Tara Riegel after Joni.
Good evening, my name is Joni Harshman. I'm an attorney from Kansas City. I've been working with a longtime colleague and friend, expert from Colorado who's been involved in the industry since the very beginning. I just want to reiterate support for reasonable regulation. Colorado has seen their overregulation stifle the industry. They've had to deal with multiple amendments over the year, which has been an administrative nightmare for everybody involved in the industry, including patients. And I believe that the market should should control the supply, and you should consider not putting too many limitations and restrictions on the number of licenses available. And I just want to say that I'm very excited and passionate to see this progress in our state.
Yeah. Tara?
Hello, Tara Riegel from Washington, Missouri. Sorry, I typed my stuff out. I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone when I admit that my husband and I had to enlist the help of Grandma to help watch our twins so we could be here. We want to get involved, but I myself am terrified to get involved with 3 small children. And we have the twins and a 12-year-old. What about the mothers, the fathers, and the caregivers of small children that want to participate in either growing at home or operating a grow facility? We need protection for our children if we are prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We need protection that won't be used against us in a family court. We just want to make sure that you don't leave out the mothers, the fathers, and the caregivers of these small children, and we have some sort of protection from DFS. I don't want to lose my right to be a mother if I get involved. Thank you.
And we have Brandon Castor. Okay, Brandon, you got it.
Good evening, it's Brandon Costerison. No one gets it right on the first 3 tries. I'm with the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse in St. Louis. Been in the St. Louis area a few years. There's just really 2 things that we want to touch on real quickly. And they are things that DHSS does have the ability to regulate per the amendment. Number 1 would be training staff specifically at the dispensary level. We've heard a few ideas coming as far as doctors or having nurses on staff. You know, that's all well and good if that's where it ends up being, but making sure that at the very least dispensary staff is trained on the pharmacology of the different cannabinoids and the other components of the plant, so that when a patient shows up and says that they're taking benzos for anxiety, a heart medication, and they're also looking for a cannabis product to help with their pain, whomever they're speaking with is actually knowledgeable about the pharmacology and the potential interactions for both physical and psychological problems, the potential that exists there. The second thing that we worry about a little bit is products that might be appealing to children. Amendment 2 does specifically allow for edibles. That's fine. However, DHSS has the ability to regulate what types of edibles are available. So, for example, there is no medical reason that something has to come in a cookie, which kids like cookies. I like cookies. But that's something that would be appealing for a kid. There's been some legislation introduced in the Senate that would limit candy-type products. We're finding ways to still allow for edibles and being in compliance with the constitutional amendment, yet making sure that those edibles are not things that would automatically appeal to unintended audiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay. That's all the forms that we have. Sure.
I wanted to speak to a couple of more things. I think that there needs to be education not only for the child protective services of people, so they are not taking away children from medical patients or from medical cannabis business owners. And there also needs to be a re-education of Missouri police officers who have for a very, very long time treated marijuana users like criminals. I've seen in Colorado that a lot of the police officers there still treat patients like criminals. I enjoy a great relationship with local law enforcement where I live in California. I feel safe, and it was very, very scary for me to not feel safe from the police when I was living in Kansas City. So I would like to see that addressed. I would like to see patients with disabilities and other minorities get a priority for the applications, and I would like to remind you that a lot of child-proof containers are really inaccessible to people who have mobility issues. Thank you.
Thank you. You should state your name.
Yeah, I'm Grant. I already filled out a form. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just wanted to second the fact that I think that delivery should definitely be allowed. I have worked as a delivery driver in states, and during that process, I have given access to patients who have not had access, and those who have not been able to leave their bed. I have seen that affect them in very positive ways that they would not have been able to see if that wasn't provided to them. The other thing that I think is very important is a consideration of a compassionate program to those who do not have the ability to afford medicine that they need. That is definitely something that should be allowed, and because people with certain disabilities cannot hold economic advantages, and they should be given access just as much as anybody else.
Thank you.
I'll take one more shot.
Okay. Cheryl, you got another one? Okay. Go ahead. Steve, right?
Stephen, right, yeah. Stephen Faber. I just wanted to follow up on a couple comments that were made. First about edibles. Senator Anders has a bill to very harshly restrict edibles, which edibles do need to be restricted with respect to their appealing to children. For instance, in Colorado, you can't have something that looks like a Hershey bar and call it a Hashy bar. So you can't put that kind of confusion into the market for children. There are going to be edibles, no matter what they look like. And you know, right now we have vitamins that are gummy bears, and I don't think any responsible parent is going to leave those out on the counter so the kid can eat them like candy. We're trying to regulate and legalize medical marijuana. We're not legalizing stupidity. So, you know, if you've got children, you know, keep your cookies locked up.
Yes.
People are going to make their own cookies at home. So I have some issues with Senator Anders' bill. The intent is good, but I think some more thought has to be put into it. The parental rights, Representative Hicks filed a bill to protect people who are looking to adopt. I believe that was it, or was it foster parents?
And work in the industry too.
Right, and working into the industry. Well, thank you. And Representative Hicks met with some representatives from Normal. We had a discussion, and I believe he's amending the bill to include natural parents, biological parents, and all parents. Is that correct? Correct. Thank you. And thank you for coming. Thank you for everything you do in the legislature.
Yeah. Say that again.
Research says it's a standalone bill on its own. Why don't you have to amend my bill like to file a whole other bill that protects the parent?
Thank you.
Great. Okay, we've got a few more here. Rick Crawford. And then after Rick, we'll have Kevin Hertz. And then Brian Ekstrom.
Hello, I'm Rick Crawford from Jefferson City, Missouri. And I wanted to, I saw and read an article a while back that made a whole lot of sense to me. And the state I'm referring to compared a lot in both size and population as the state of Missouri. And I kind of looked all that stuff up and I went, ooh, wow, that's just about, you know, comparing apples and apples as close to it as we can. One thing I was wanting to particularly discuss is when a grower facility, a manufacturer, gets done packaging their stuff and documenting it and so forth, they're able to use their own delivery system. The delivery system, this was the state of, I believe it was Wisconsin. And in the state of Wisconsin, they put 2 people into the van. One person is always in the van and never leaves. If they have to make a pit stop, one of them goes and then the other one goes. They take their turns, but someone is always in a locked up van. When the deliveries are being made, the deliveries are then taken into the dispensary facility, and at that point they're accounted for, signed off for by the dispensary, and then they're put into the log of the driver, who has a driver's manifest. Now, if the driver, for any reason or for no reason, gets pulled over by, say, a friendly state trooper or a local sheriff, well, he's going to say, oh, well, you know, he's going to show, well, he's a driver for ABC Marijuana Company and Cannabis Company. The policeman can even ask at that point, well, can I see your manifesto? Where are you going? Where have you been? Are you going in the right direction? You see? And everything's locked up. Inside the van, they have a safe with an envelope slot. So when they get that cash in hand, it goes into a safe that's bolted down to the inside of the van. No one knows the combination, but people at the grower's facility. At that point, the stuff is delivered. By the way, I wanted to mention, in that particular state, the person who's riding shotgun is really riding shotgun. They're packing. They've got a sidearm, and I would really hate to see somebody delivering some bags of marijuana to a dispensary to have to hire a Loomis armored car service with 4 armed guards inside to have to deliver it like it was bars of gold from Fort Knox, because it isn't quite exactly that. And although cash would be on board, it's secured. And unless they've got a stick of dynamite and some other things, I mean, you know, it'll get silly for them to try to rob them of cash, so all they're going to get is the $10 that the driver has in his wallet. So everything's secured, everything's accounted for. There's a manifesto. Where's the van going? Where's it coming back? The other thing is placing the van with a GPS device, to where at the growing facility, which should always be manned, either by a security guard or one of the employees there, at that point, the van can be monitored. Well, where the heck are you? Well, I'm 30 minutes from being back. Okay. Well, you know where they're at. You can actually see them on the map where they're at. And they make those. Ask the CIA, ask the FBI. They make stuff like that. So they can know where you're at all the time. They've got accountability where the money goes. The money is signed on the outside of the envelope, put in the safe. Everything's safe, everything's delivered, everything's accounted for. So that's all. That's a main thing I really wanted to say. And I really applaud some of the people. They made some really good statements here tonight. I hope anyway, it has helped you folks.
Yeah, it has. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
Kevin Hertz.
Hello, I'm Kevin Hertz. I'm from House Springs, Missouri. Are you actually allowed to change the framework of the amendment? For example, the size of the grow facilities or the ability to set up a transportation firm independently? Or are those concreted in?
We have to follow the Constitution.
Okay, so those can't actually.
On the grow facility, I will say I think it's limited to 30,000 square feet.
Yes.
Growing space. So
That's
That would mean
concrete.
up to, I suppose.
Okay, yes, you can do as little as you please. And I know this is about forming the regulations. The only thing that we cannot plan for is the cost of the plant materials. So I know you're going to update the website as you develop them. I mean, that's something that, wholesale horticulture stuff is everywhere. That's no problem. But what it's going to cost us to get the plants, and, I don't know if you've contacted or if the state has considered that the state actually initiate the first plants. Like the Conservation Department has their tree seedling program, which is enormously successful. I mean, it might be something worth checking into because it's weird crossing state lines with federally illegal substances. And the other issue is security requirements. If you could dedicate some of your time to the genetics and the security requirements, that will enable us to plan things out much easier.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, absolutely. Let's see, we have Brian Ekstrom. And then after Brian, we'll do Alex Overcast.
Hi everyone, I'm Brian Ekstrom from Climax Springs, Missouri. Thank you very much for holding this forum for us tonight. I just have a few quick questions. Wondering, well, first of all, or I guess points as far as obviously a Second Amendment right being an issue with medical cards, or if someone like me that might be wanting to apply for a cultivation license, issue obviously with the fact of money not being able to be, FDI insured and bring in federal banks. The point of obviously any criminal activity with a lot of cash obviously is a huge thing. And I believe that anyone, in security, stand for police that have ever dealt with a lot of issues with cannabis, usually it's probably referring to the illegality of it or issues when it comes to most like violence. A lot of people, I think, in the private security realm know and see that, obviously a lot more things like alcohol and other drugs are a factor of a lot of criminal activity, domestic abuse, extreme violence. I've never seen anyone that smoked a joint and then, went back and had a lot of issues or bar fights or domestic disputes or anything of that aspect. And then another thing that I wanted to kind of question is, obviously there's been an expedited process of everything for the application fees, and has developed the opportunity for a lot of out-of-state money to be able to come in, buy and obtain a lot of properties, buildings, have the fees already pre-accepted. What's the point of someone where we don't even necessarily know all of the criteria necessarily until August of the application fees, where maybe I would want to invest a lot of money into buildings on a property, as opposed to someone who's already put in their money and already put application fees in process, already have buildings in process. What's to say those applicants aren't going to already have a standing a foot up on anyone else because they were just able to afford to have the locations and all the fees prior to knowing all the criteria, seeing if they believed it would actually be a fit or not to develop that business. And that's about it.
I'm going to go ahead and address that one. I haven't been doing that tonight, but I do want to make sure people know that the pre-application fees, there's no advantage at all to sending those in early, other than it helps us fund the program, quite frankly, and that's how the drafters had it set up. But there's no advantage, and you will have the application form, or the application will be available at the same time the rules are released, finalized on June the 4th. Mm-hmm. So there will be a 60-day period there for you to be able to have all the rules and application before we start accepting those applications back on August the 3rd. So just to clarify.
No, thank you. I just
You're welcome.
want to make it present.
You're welcome. Thank you for that. Alex?
My name is Alex Overcast. I'm from Ava, Missouri, and here representing a very small family company, Show Me Natural Gardens. There's a lot of mom and pop here, as it's been stated. We'd like to talk to you later. And there's a couple things I'd like to address. One of them is the inability to use a single license for a split grow operation. We've heard quite a few people speak about how many people are not in a position to take on a 30,000 square foot of flower facility. It's enormous. Having been to a couple of grows in Colorado, as well to a couple of expos, speaking to industry leaders in lighting, every time we mention our square footage, we get nothing but jaws dropping, because nothing they have set up presently is capable of truly giving us an idea of what that's going to be like when it comes to power consumption and just general overall build quality of what kind of building we're going to have. One thing that will greatly allow a lot of our smaller communities and smaller growers to take advantage of the opportunity to us is to be able to start out small with an indoor grow operation, but use the faculties given to us by the license to take advantage of our summer growing season to blow that out of the park. The amount of yield that we can get out of a field grow in the state of Missouri is amazing. It will also encourage people to use greenhouses, which will be great for all the green initiatives people have spoken about, because you can transition from those very easily. So I definitely would like to see that into consideration, to something to allow you to use one license, utilize 10,000 square foot of it inside, and use that 20,000 somehow in ratio with an outdoor grow. Additionally, in addition to this, many of us have spoke about how we don't want large businesses coming in and moving money outside of our communities while they utilize cheap labor, maybe not even giving enough, priority to veterans and minorities. The big thing I would like to see is some form of incentive program to allow cannabis growers and processors to give back to their communities and perform education in them as well, whether it be paid for or personally handled. I would like to see them setting up community outreach programs to educate people about it, and educate, for example, how you keep it in a home, as it's been brought up. I believe we've been referring to it as the compassion program. I'm unfamiliar with that's actually an actual term or a thing, or if that's just a movement. But a good example of a way to do this, I believe, would be to have an amount of education that they need to perform in their community, something they can substantiate, a certain amount of actual giving back, community projects, whether it be in infrastructure or in youth, for example, making sure that we're not having a youth problem with this, but something involved with all of that, that perhaps lowering the yearly license fee, which would also help with the upkeep with small grows. And I cannot stress enough the ramp-up period for genetics. I know it's been said a lot. I just want to echo that one more time to really hammer that home. The stifling of the market that we've seen, and we have spoken to many growers and a lot of people in the industry, and we hear it over and over and over again. I wish we could bring in more genetics. We know guys that have them, but we can't use them. And all of them are hoping. There are suppliers out there that we can get a hold of that will have it overnight, and we'll be able to get our own strains here that will allow a much wider competitive market, which will also keep prices down. So I just definitely want to make sure that we address those issues.
Thank you. Thank you. James Levine, and then Matthew Minke. Sorry about this.
No, you got it right.
Got that one right. Good.
Thank you guys for being here tonight, and again for hosting us. Just want to echo a few things that have already been said. First off, zoning, that's always a big concern. Reason being is I have quite a few friends in the industry. California was one of the first to go, as we know. And when they switched over, zoning was so stringent that it was required that these places be industrial locations. That limits the amount of people that can come from Missouri to actually, have the funds to afford an industrial location, but also it limits the potential customer. We talked a lot about mobility, but also just the average working class person. For some people, there's still a large stigma with medical cannabis, and a lot of companies still, do drug testing, and employees are afraid to be seen going into these facilities. So it limits the amount of access you have. So with that, I would highly recommend implementing some sort of delivery, whether it be allowing the dispensaries to, have their own delivery driver, or as someone mentioned earlier, having separate delivery entities. One of the other big concerns we've heard is cash flow. We have security issues with cash. with businesses holding cash, and now with, you know, with our ability to carry a firearm as a business owner and have medical cannabis, you know, it kind of limits you. So one of the things that I've seen Nevada do to help combat that is allow credit card purchases for medical marijuana. And the way they do that is they allow the individual dispensary to sell a gift certificate to their establishment, and that way the credit card company can still process the payment. So that eliminates a lot of risk of having these dispensaries have cash on hand at site if they can now in fact allow credit card payments. And then one of the last points, I know we've heard from a few veterans tonight. Thank you everybody that served. And I want to make sure that Missouri veterans have accessibility to cannabis. One of the things that I have a buddy in Colorado who works for one of the largest dispensaries there, and they have I forgot the exact name for it, but basically a cannabis for veterans. And so as a incentive for the dispensaries and or growers, they can get some sort of break on their tax to give free product to our veterans. So that way the veterans that have PTSD that are coming back can't get access to cannabis from the VA, they can get access to it. And the veterans that have had PTSD that have been, you know, customers of these dispensaries that are, you know, it is right now, you know, voluntary, but I'd like to see in Missouri something to that effect where we can support our veterans with this initiative, but without having to maybe sell it to them or go through some sort of insurance. And then, you know, the establishment that's providing that to this veteran gets some sort of, you know, whether it's a tax break on the sale for, you know, X amount of dollars that's worth, or whatever that looks like. But I think if we can do something like that where it gives it access to not only veterans, but also, you know, indigent patients that really need access, but just simply don't have the funds. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, James. Matthew?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Minke, St. Louis, Missouri. I am a current business owner. I've been doing business in St. Louis since I was 18. I have my hand in a few different markets. On this one, pertaining to the, you know, the roundup date, June 4th, you said that we would give, we'd have 60 days roughly from the day we were able to file an application or get the form to, well, same day. The rules came out, same day you get the form. Then we have 60 days until you guys start putting out applications. If I take that 60 days and I spend, we'll just say a minimum of 30 rezoning my property because it doesn't meet your guidelines, that's an issue. So the 60 days is pushing it. Now I got to look into security and staffing. We need some type of pre-process to follow so we don't spend money blindlessly. What are your recommendations on security staffing for people in the buildings, or, you know, the security on the building itself? We have staff training guidelines that we will have to follow. We don't know who we can hire. We don't know who's going to be a legit company to train our bud tenders and all the above that go with the industry. Also, those zoning municipalities and districts, will there be a municipality that can say no, you can't have it here, period? You know, we're not going to have a dispensary, an extraction site anywhere in our city. Something to think about. There are going to be some cities that fight it 100%. Do we have a leg to stand on there? And per license category. If I was to go ahead and go grow, extraction, and dispensary, that's a whole lot to cover in 60 days. Whole lot to get ready in 60 days. So we just would love to have some type of pre-process to follow. The sooner you could get it on the website, the better for all of us, you know, just with our hands out, not knowing which way to go. So we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for hearing us all out, and we definitely would love to see all this move forward in a great way for Missouri. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We've got 2 Cardinals and 1 Royal tonight. Where's the other Royal at? Balance this out.
All right, so I was a little nervous earlier as well, so forgive me. So I just want to let you guys know that you guys are in a very unique position. And I'm not saying that I'm putting this all on you, but I am putting this all on you. So you guys have the opportunity to be the innovators, to where everybody patterns their cannabis laws after Missouri. And it never changes because we are the ones that pass the law for the patients, and it's for the patients, and it's for the people of Missouri. I can't stress enough how much I am pro-Missouri, and I'm pro-patient, and I'm pro-mom and pop. I understand business, I understand the politics of business, I understand all of that, but we have to really consider the people who brought this law into effect. And I hate to put you on the spot, buddy, but Lance, Lance is a friend of mine. He's become a friend of mine. That guy collected over 7,000 signatures. Right now, Lance doesn't want to be a part of the cannabis industry, but maybe he doesn't want to be a part of it because he doesn't have the money. And I have a problem with if Tom, Dick, and Harry, excuse my language, comes in from wherever and gets rich, and Lance put the legwork in for him. I have a problem with that. And I just had a couple questions that I wanted to ask. Like, how are we going to go about the jobs? Like, who's going to create the jobs and the licenses for the security companies, the delivery companies, the waste companies? Or are they going to have to apply for a license with you guys as well, or is that just a state license or whatever the case may be? And I think that's it. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
You guys are doing a good job.
Appreciate you. Yeah, okay. We'll balance it out, another roll. I'll come back up. All right. And then the gentleman back there want to speak? Okay, have you come on up. Sure.
Once again, my name's Kevin Marshall. I'm out of Kansas City. My question's one more time. I'm going to go back to cultivation. I want to echo it one more time in regards to licensing. Something I would like for you guys to possibly think about, and I don't know if it's a possibility. And I think the young man earlier was kind of referring to that. I don't know if he really went more into detail, but basically you're looking at around cultivation licenses for indoor around 60. We're looking at 60 basically is what we're looking at, 61. At 30,000 square feet inside, you're looking at what is that, 1,800,000 square feet of grow. Is there any way of actually possibly looking at doing 30 of those for the 30,000 square foot people and taking the additional 30 or whatever's left over and maybe breaking that down into where we apply for smaller and you guys increase the license up for more of the Missouri people so that we can come in and be the smaller businesses with maybe a little bit of less money. So that was just something that I would like to echo again, is that I want to be a small business owner for now, and I want to be a Missouri business owner, and you know, I want to have the opportunity to come in here without giving everything away. That's really I just want to echo it one more time. So
well, thank you.
Hi, John Gaddy, Jefferson City, Missouri.
Hi, John.
So I have a quick question or statement about liquidity requirements. So I know that in other states there have been a lot of liquidity requirements, upwards of $150,000, $250,000. I do believe that keeping those liquidity requirements kind of in line with what we expect businesses to be able to put up makes sense. So keeping those as low as possible. Obviously, we need to have some assurances that the businesses are viable so we don't have a black market influx, but keeping those requirements a little lower, I think, would be a good idea. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say that we really appreciate everybody coming out. This has been extremely helpful to us. We hope that it's been informative to all of you. You know, this isn't an easy task. And we do want to make sure that, you know, Missouri is first, Missourians are first, the patients are actually first, Missouri patients. But that's what the voters decided, and we want to honor that. There were 3 amendments on the ballot in November. This is the one that was selected overwhelmingly. And so just to kind of follow up with a couple of things real quick, it would have been very difficult for us to start any kind of a program because we didn't even know it was going to be in the Department of Health until this amendment passed. So really all of this has had to start after November the 6th, and as you can imagine, something of this nature takes a long time to get all the programs and the software and the IT and everything in place. So we're doing it. We're working hard. We're trying to do our very best at it. And we appreciate everybody's patience, everybody's input, and we do consider the opinions of everyone, and we really appreciate you coming out. Representative Hicks here looks like he wants to say something.
I just wanted to let you know Tom and Dale just arrived, but
did he?
there is one real quick thing I'd like to say. Some of you may be upset with the process, and I understand that, but one thing you do need to understand is that this team right here is working very hard and very long. I can't even get in right now to get an appointment to talk to him, he's so busy. And I'm a representative. So I would really appreciate if all of you could give them a round of applause for taking it.
Y'all have been extremely good and cordial, and we haven't let emotion get in the way sometimes of the way we present ourselves, and I really appreciate that. This has been an awesome forum. You say Tom is here and wants to speak? Okay. Tom, we've been looking for you all night, so we got to give you a few minutes here.
You guys are going to see why I thought it was important you came to speak.
I'm very sorry for being late. I had another loss of life in veteran community last night, and then another one hit us just now, a 98-year-old veteran. I just felt it was time.
Sorry to hear that.
I just needed to deal with the situation.
Absolutely.
But I don't, unfortunately, my name's Thomas Mundell. I'm the past state commander for the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and also the past chairman of MAVO, the Missouri Association of Veteran Organizations. First, I want to tell each and every one of you, including Representative Schroer and the entire committee, how proud I am of each and every one of the board members and how you all are handling this tremendous opportunity of a lifetime that has come to this state. I validated the validity of medical cannabis for the last 57 months, and I can assure people that unfortunately it's not our government, but there was a few jerks, individuals in our government in the 30s and the 60s that lied and demonized this plant. After 57 months of diligent effort of special operatives working with the government, trying to uncover the truth about the validity of this plant, we've found not one single document that had any proof of scientific analysis or research that demonized this plant. Even the American Medical Association back in the 30s as well as the 60s told Nixon that we need more experience with this plant ourselves. We can't demonize this plant because we can't find anything wrong with it right now. And they made up all those stories and had those 7 doctors sign that documentation. And your great-great-grandparents and your grandparents and your mom and dad and you and me and everybody else have been lied to about this plant. Well, when I got, for some reasons, I got involved out of special ops and got into this, and I did this research project. I found there was a lot of errors made. And true leaders will set their personal feelings to the side and allow themselves to be educated and gain knowledge and make the right decisions for the people. And I want everybody in this room to know that Jeff Sessions, believe it or not, General Sessions himself and the Trump administration and 39 senators that was totally against this plant all switched and came on board, and General Sessions said not one single negative word about medical cannabis the last 19 months. Now, that has nothing really to do with what we're doing here. I just wanted to preface this. Those of us that was involved with New Approach Missouri and Missouri, a tremendous group of people that was totally 100% dedicated, that helped with Missouri Cannabis Industry Association and others to put this amendment together. And I screwed up. There was some things left out of it, and I don't know what you all were covered up to now, but one of them was we really felt that reciprocity, I know that's not the correct way to say it, but people from out of state that have a medical license, the way the law is written right now, they come to this state, if they walk into a dispensary and walk out, they're breaking the law. And because there is no safe haven for them to even eat an edible or smoke or vape or anything, and this is medicine. I think once the doctors get educated on this subject, and that's another thing we're involved in, is educating the doctors. Not only the people, but we got to educate the doctors to be able to explain things to the patients correctly. And but we need a safe haven, and those I've been in all 28 states testifying and working with them, and just came out of Colorado and California, and they're just now going with their can of lounges. But the thing that I really found interesting was when I was in Holland at the coffee shops. And I really think that you should all consider and do your due diligence, of course, but look at that aspect of a coffee shop having the ability to have edibles and being able to bring your product there, and just like it goes on in Holland. Everybody, you know, it's a very mellow place, and the dab bars and things like that that they have in Colorado and California, they don't have problems there. And we really need to look at that, because we don't want to cause more problems for us that we could incur from that. The other thing was making sure that, I think everything else was covered, because before I left, I heard quite a bit of it covered. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. But thank you. I'm sorry.
Well, again, we really thank you for coming out tonight. It's really been informative and educational. And have a safe trip home, and we'll be seeing you down the road here, I'm sure. Thank you all very much.